Hey, this is Dylan Levi King, and today we are going to watch The Price of Madness from 1988. Now there's multiple versions of this movie, and we're going to watch the cleanest one available. What you should be seeing right now is a nude scene with the two sisters in the movie in a public bath. Lanlan is the youngest sister. She's with her older sister Qingqing. Lanlan has just gotten her first period. And we see Qingqing wiping off Lanlan. But we don't see it in this version anyways. The title is 疯狂的代价, The Price of Madness, or the Price of Frenzy.
坚持住，用力，好，用力。
And we cut back here to Qingqing.
坚持住。
And this is introducing one of the key parts of the movie, which is this feminist critique about the value of the lives of women and girls. Now, I would argue it's sort of it goes a bit deeper, or goes in another direction than just a simple feminist critique, in that the traditional feminine is sort of imperiled by the breakdown of society in the 1980s and the introduction of sort of a spiritual pollution from the West. But anyways, it's here, so let's not ignore it.
他男人不让，说是留疤难看。哼，混蛋！他女人的命都快保不住了，叫他自己来生，疼死。
As the girl says, the nurse says here in a moment, the only way we'll have equality is if
妇女才算彻底解放。对，叫他们也怀胎十月，然后产
men
前、
and women could
侧
both
切、
give
剖
birth,
腹、动刀子
could
缝
both
针
get
一块
pregnant.
上，女人受的罪呀，让他们也试上一回。以后，世界也就公平了。
太感谢了！来，喝！哎，对不起，B超还说是个女的，
And here's
可
the
你们
family
弄出个
coming
男
in
的，
to
真是
congratulate
天无绝人之路啊！
Qingqing on the delivery of the male heir.
接的生啊？那脖子好看的那个。来，牵上。这是第一块。
Anyways, we'll get into that in as we go along.
哎
It's a bit of an experiment since I'm not sure quite when to talk or what to say, and I know I have to pace myself because I have an hour and a half here to go, and I don't want to repeat myself too much. And here we're seeing Lanlan for the first time. In the other versions, we would have seen her before. It's famous for being like the first full nude scene in a Chinese movie. Yeah, we do see both of these girls nude, at least from the waist up, in the bath. And, you know, one reason that the nude scene is cut, I would say, is because we're seeing not just Wu Yujuan, who plays Qingqing here, the older sister naked, but also Lanlan, played by Li Jing, who was, I think, 12 years old at this time.
好了，吃饭。吃什么饭
So
呀？
it's not cut just in the interests of,
面包、鸡汁儿、牛奶。
you know,
给。
traditional morality and like not having nude scenes, but
一个忘了。
also
先吃
because
饭
the
后刷
girl
牙。
is super young. But you can see in this scene, like, you sort of see
录过书的时候，
Wu
这个黄李
Yujuan
长伟。
as the older sister,
你自己还
obviously
呗。
sexualized,
姐
but
弟回吗？
also there's
等
sort
会
of
儿
a
吵架姐姐带你
an
出去玩
invitation, especially if you've seen that first scene with Lanlan sort of becoming a woman, in the words of her sister, to see her in sort of a, I don't know, to sort of project our erotic gaze on her as well, if that makes any sense. And what this movie does really well is it sort of implicates the viewer in the things it's critiquing.
没意思，跟我姐一样，整天和大肚子女人在一起，还得哄着让他们别哭。
得了吧，那叫护士，学医的得当博士。
I don't know if I should introduce a bit about the director is Zhou Xiaowen. This is almost one of his first films. He made one earlier called 最后的疯狂,
三毛玩了一辈子。
which is The Last Madness, I guess, which is sort of a basic thriller. But this is, I would argue, his first serious film. He wrote it with Lu Wei, who would go on to adapt Farewell My Concubine. He also adapted To Live from Yujuan's novel for a movie. And as I said, there are several different versions of the movie. There's an original theatrical version, which we can't see, you know, we can only read about it. But it was, it had the nude scene in it, obviously. And then there's this version that we're watching right now, which was cut for home video or DVD release in the mainland. And then there is a version from earlier that was released home video in Taiwan. And then there's also a version that was broadcast on CCTV 6, which is like the China Central Television's movie channel. And it cuts the nude scene at the beginning, but it leaves in some of the stuff that this version cuts. This is a pivotal scene, and it is also cut in this version. We're going to see how this plays out, but it cuts quite early in this version, cutting out a lot of the violence that is going to happen. We have Chang Rong on the right, the actor's name playing Suen Da-cheng, and Lanlan on the left. Chang Rong ended up being in a lot of, well, a couple Zhou Xiaowen movies. He was sort of Zhou Xiaowen's muse in a way through this period. And he's quite great playing the villain in this. And we cut a little bit earlier than in other versions. And this scene here of the doctor examining Lanlan is also cut in a couple different places that the CCTV 6 version and the overseas home video version was not cut. And we have that anguished scream here again. You know, we heard it with the woman in labor, we heard it with Lanlan, and we're going to hear it throughout. And again, we see Chang Rong watching there. again, we're sort of implicated in his voyeurism. We're even worse because we're privy to this conversation right here. I forget the name of the actor who we just saw in the car just now, noticing the light in the tower, but he plays, I think his character's name is Lao Zhao. He's a cop on his way to retirement. Anyways, cut to the loft, and we see Sun Da-cheng, played by Chang Rong, and his brother, is how he's described, played by Liu Linian.
什么屌玩意儿，不是正经人看的东西。也不会弄点好书看看。
What the hell is this crap you're looking at?
好书多的是。
He's looking at pornography or dirty books. We could say pulp fiction.
你手怎么了？
没怎么。
你坐那干什么去了？
And
哎，你过来。
despite the fact that they're described as brothers in the movie,
弄车玩玩。
it's hard not to see their relationship as sort of homoerotic. You'll see that as we go through.
你还嫌我事少是不
But
是？
you see these posters on the wall.
不是看在咱
Chang
妈的
Rong's
份儿，
character is sort of the
把你狗日肥我给你锯了去。
embodiment of a twisted masculinity, a masculinity that's been polluted by that spiritual pollution from the West. You can see his posters on the wall where cars and guns and, you know, Rocky, Rambo, that kind of stuff.
你发现的时候是这样的吗？对，是这样。好。
And they've found the car that
今天
Chang
凌晨
Rong's
5点，
character was
东
driving.
海饭店的人报告说，他们的车子被盗了。刚才钓鱼的人发现了他。这辆车的车型和牌号与被盗的相符。
You can see this
钓鱼的人说，
Qingdao location is used quite well throughout this
车
movie.
下面有份杂志，你看，清静书屋。
Anyways, they found the pornography,
有
and
没有其他反应？
the
就是说，
pornography
有没有
bears
出现
a
过口
stamp
干
from a
或者流泪的
store
现象？
called Qingqing Shu, which we are going to go to in a moment.
把这吃了。
Anyways, you'll see throughout that
这是杏仁。
location of Qingdao and the distinctive architecture and the coastal scenes.
这个
It was quite rare to see this kind of on location
姐姐，
or
我
the
不闻了。
use of the location in an interesting way in movies in the 1980s and 1990s, I would say.
想想看，是这种味吗？
不知道，我的嘴都累烂了，什么都看不见，我哪能知道啊？
哎，就停这儿吧，我们自己走回去。
It's interesting to think about or
停下，别往前开
talk
了。
about why this movie is the way it is, you know. Before 1984, the state would have been closely involved in filmmaking. They would have taken care of the funding of basically everything, from distributing the films to the production of them to screening them.
停！女人在受到袭击的时候，应该是歇斯底里了，有多大劲儿使多大劲儿，玩命喊，懂吗？好，再来一次，开始。好，停！你是干什么的？捣什么乱？
找我的，我先出去一下。
So there were reforms carried out
女主角
through
跑
the
了，让我去干嘛？
1980s through the 1970s and 1980s, but they were quite uneven and irrational, I would say. So a studio was still state-run, but was receiving much less funding from the state. But the state was also making certain decisions, like how many prints of a film would be distributed and what price they could be sold at, and where funding for a movie could come from. You know, you couldn't go to an outside source of finance for a movie. So out of the 100 or 200 movies made each year through the 1980s, after 1984, very few of them actually turn a profit. So that's one of the reasons why you get that nude scene. That's why you get the violence and the thriller aspects in this. I mean, they're here for an artistic reason, that he's sort of critiquing them and critiquing this pornography that we're seeing right now with the bookstore, but it's also because you needed this kind of thing to put asses in seats.
So
Qingqing is confronting the owner of the bookstore, whose stamp was on the book. And she knew the owner, who's played here by Xie Yuan, the gentleman in the green shirt, because they were, I don't know, they were dating, let's say. They're acquainted with each other for sure. And again, we're sort of implicated in this. We're looking at this pulp fiction, this pornography, but we are also watching it. And if Chang Rong's character sort of represents that thwarted traditional masculinity twisted by his obsession with Western ideas, then Xie Yuan sort of represents kind of like a new male. He's a guy who's sort of a slacker character. She plays in a couple movies from around this time, who is willing to go along with the madness of the time, the 疯狂 of the title. He's willing to make a buck off of it.
其实他们掌握的，我也掌握。第一，可能到书屋来过；第二，本地口音，是个司机，留下了脚印儿。还有，兰兰咬过他，可能在左手留下伤痕。还有，哦，对了，爱吃口香糖。
And you know, as there were sort of lax censorship at this time in violence and nudity, there's also lax censorship in the realm of ideology. Basically, these studios had to turn a profit, so there was not much interest in controlling how they did it. It's also sort of like an ideologically confused time and a time of ideological contention. So, you know, you see here, this might not have flown later, where you have a character who's sort of abandoned abandoned by the state in the form of the police. She has to solve this crime by herself. And again, here's a great use of that Qingdao location with the crowded beach. It's sort of interesting this morning reading all the fallout from the various sexual assault and sexual harassment allegations in China being addressed. The situation with Chris Wu and Alibaba, and seeing the issue of sexual assault being grappled with in this movie in 1988, about more than 3 decades ago. And it's quite a sympathetic portrayal. But in a way, you know, what I believe Zhou Xiaowen is going for here is going back to that idea of the traditional feminine being assaulted by the twisted masculinity of Chang Rong's character. Those are her parents. They are divorced, and that's also part of the reason this happens, in a way. You know, obviously not, but one of the reasons Lanlan is exposed to somebody like Chang Rong's character is because of the breakdown in her family. Her parents are divorced.
左拉巴德就是光脚。老师，他叫左爱丽，和左拉巴德是一家子。
严肃点。后排那个没有脱衣服的女同学，出列。
笑什么？有什么好笑的？
你为什么没有脱衣服？是不是你家长没给你买短运动衣？跑出校门就要代表我们的校风。
鲍老师。
Now, this is basically Zhou Xiaowen's first movie. He made, as I said, he made a movie before this. But he would go on through the 80s. Did he make another movie in the 80s? Not really. He gets started again in the 1990s. Now, by this time, there's still some money to go around. You saw this was made for Xi'an Film Studios. This was sort of, I guess you could say, funded or, I don't know, propelled by the success of the other fifth-generation directors who had made a splash in the mid-'80s. I wish I could remember what exactly the situation with Xi'an Film Studio was, but I believe Tian Zhuang was in charge of it at this time, who had made The Blue Kite, or he was going to make The Blue Kite. And there was sort of the idea that they could find directors who could make movies that would follow in the path blazed by like the Zhang Yimous and the Chen Kai-ges. But basically after this movie, Zhou Xiaowen doesn't make quite as serious of movies. He returns in the 1990s with a movie called No Regrets. 青春无悔. which is adapted from a Wang Shuo
先把你们
story.
家招了个遍，
It's about a Vietnam
你
veteran
怎么不招同伙啊？
他们把钱赢了全跑了，你说这不把赢家抓来，
tries
单
to
把我这输家弄来，
reintegrate into
我本来就
society.
够倒霉的了。
He has
把你抓来，你把他们一
brain
招，
cancer.
抓
He
住他们，好把钱退给
falls in
你。
love
真的，
with a nurse who
哎呦，叔叔，您别拿我
actually
开心了，
treated
您
him。in Vietnam.
这油得买高价的吧？
And then he made in 1992 a movie that I really love,
到时候
which is
我
called
帮你搞
Rush
辆
of
车，
Youth, or
一个月
Qingqing
400-500
Chongdong.
吧。
真的，
It also has
那我搞
Chang
上1-2
Rong in
年，
it. He plays
也能给我
a
孙子买架钢琴
also
了。
a super masculine
如今
tough
新病
guy whose traditional masculinity is thwarted once again by
听
the
见没有？起码是2进宫了。
market logic,
走走走
I
走
guess you could say.
等我一会儿啊。
哎，好，
His girlfriend is a aspiring singer.
你把零件再不买回来
And，
这活可没法干了啊！
She ends up being taken in by some
银行
sleazy
说咱们的机票都
producers who
透
are
支
going
了
to，make her famous.
我看咱们这
And
摊子
when
没准头了。
Chang Rong's character tries to save her from being raped by them,
给
he
接啊，
ends up
把油盆子盖上。
being charged with a crime. And his girlfriend basically sells him out over a meal of KFC and
老板这
Coca-Cola.
不大对劲儿。
他俩肯定牌照上没清。
那算什么？老板让
And
公安局给
in that
传去
movie,
了。
Chang Rong's character ends up in a reform through labor camp, and
又要抓人了
his
啊！
girlfriend realizes that
弄不
fame
好
is
是小
hollow,
教堂那档子事儿。
and she ends up
什么事儿？把一个10
discovering
来岁的小女
her
孩子给
own
闹了，
traditional
听说还
femininity
是司机给
and
开车骗去的。
chastely waiting for him to
抓了
finish
这可是直接
his
毙。
sentence.
一个这个，一个小偷，家里养着千金
Now
的，
after that,
多加小心。
we get
我
into
那可是带
sort
把
of the
你跟你老婆闹了
mid
3个月，
1990s when there's a
八成
big
是你
change
小
in
子
the
造的孽
film
吧？啊！
industry.
造你小爷
And
子
the
的孽！我
reforms to it are sort of
哎呦呦呦！
completed,
别捏
where you
别
can
捏
get，
捏坏了你要不成小
funding
弟弟
for
了！
a
哎
movie
呦！
after that. So he sort of turns to artier
过
pictures.
去生男生女
He
被
makes a
认
movie
为是
called
女人
Black
单方面的事
Mountain
情，
Road, Heishanlu.
这显然是一种封建迷
And
信。
then I would
实
say
际
his
上，生
masterpiece,
男
which
生
is
女是
Ermo,
不以人的意志为
which
转
is
移
about
的。
a rural
好，同
woman
学们，还有什么问题吗？
who
报告，
leaves behind her.
杨老师，
Again,
你
it's
的
a
说法
movie
过
about
时了，
kind of
这是讲义上写的，
tension between
那就是讲义过时了。
traditional masculinity, traditional gender
王小林
roles,
同学，
and
你
the
发明了什么新观点？
market
不
logic
是我
of
发明的，是书上写的。
reform.
写的什么？能念念吗？不好意思，
So Ermo, the
没关系，让同学们
titular
了解
character,
了解新观
she
点
ends up
也好啊。
selling her body, selling her blood
瑞典医学博士
in
本
order
格哈里森的
to
研究
buy
表
a
明，
TV.
人类
She
控
wants
制
to
后代
buy a
性别的前
great
景
big
已经
TV,
在望。
and
众
she
所周
eventually
知，
does that.
决定性别是染色体 XY 与 XX
It's a
这两种精子
deeply
游动速度
depressing
寿命
movie.
有很大差
The
异。
earlier
另外
Zhou Xiaowen
女
movies
性分泌物的
appeal
pH
to me
值
more
对这两种
because
精
there
子
was
的活
that
力与寿命
commercial
也构成不
pressure
同程度的影响。
on
比如
him
说，
to
卵子
include
处于等候
car
状态，
chases and
携带 XY 染色体的精子
cleavage,
先到达，
which
则
are
生男可
things
能
that I
性较
like.
大。
Um,
如精子处于等候状态，
You know, I don't
携
really
带
have
XX 精子
such
因寿命较长，
developed taste in
则生女
movies.
可
I
能
like
性较
exploitation
大。
movies.
嗯，
So sort of scratches the
是啊，
that itch for me, those
你也
90s
是。
movies. And this
所
this
以
movie from
排卵的时
1988.
机很重要，也可以说受精的时机更重要。
But in writing about Zhou Xiaowen, I
我
always
才
say
不怕呢，
he's
出了院就跟他离婚。
sort of a
哎呦，孩子
conservative.
真咬哎，跟他爸一模一样。
一怀上孕，家里
You
人
know,
就像填鸭
conservative
子一样，
as
恨
opposed
不得
to
孩子比
the
猪还胖，结果胖的生不下来
to the
不是
to
难
the
产就是
liberal
大出血， 自己跟自己
tendency
过
in China at the time, in that he's quite skeptical of
静静，你是不是不舒服？
market reform and of opening up to the West.
干咱们这行的，一进产房就是2条人命，可不敢马虎。
从明天起，你把我全调成后夜班。
你别老想着那件事儿。其实，兰兰只要神经系统不出问题，心理上不落毛病，就不影响将来结婚生孩子。再说，以后的年轻人也不会在乎这事儿的。我记得一本杂志上提到过这个问题。我想想，
her coworker says, you know, Lanlan's going to be fine. She's going to get over it. And Qingqing is basically that sentiment is echoed throughout by various people who say Lanlan's going to be fine. She'll get over it. She'll forget all about it. Don't worry about it. And Qingqing is the only one opposed to the abnormality, the abnormal behavior.
你姐姐今天没来，我不等她了。你自己回家，太危险了。我送你吧。
You know, they basically
你自己回家才危险呢。
chalk
跟着我
up
干嘛？
her
摔你送了。
sexual assault to,
什么呀？
you know, it's the price of madness. It's the price of the madness of the time.
你把书还给李大哥吧，这书挺贵的，而且人家是要卖的书。
这书是他送给你的呀。
我哥不让我要别人东西。
兰兰，我来晚了。
哦，对了，这不是原来那本，是我哥新买的。
正好，你在李长伟那儿等我，我回家和他俩谈点事儿。兰兰，
门外的书摊儿不是挺红火的吗？怎么撤了？
我马上要当人大常委了，在选民面前我要表现表现。
本来嘛就不该卖那些玩意儿，毒害青年。
不怕，真金不怕火炼。
年轻人不成熟，爱感情用事，怎么不怕？
你在我这儿最起码看了有100多本书了吧？不还是一身正气？可见人
And
这
you
玩意
know,
儿
this
只要
woman
心里
who's
美，
taking
什么
him
都
to
不怕。
task
再胡说，我疯了
for selling that pulp fiction is sort of a
这个
like the old cop, a sort of representative of the state and of the
这本破了。
the revolutionary or Maoist politics of the earlier time. And you know, I wouldn't say it's that Zhou Xiaowen is calling for a return to revolutionary politics,
你要不要？
or that this woman is, or the cop is, but that they're calling for a return to the
以你这种富态为最
cultural
美，
conservatism of the
这书不错，
of the time
健康。
before reform.
你起码可以
You
变
know, it
400
was
多
a
块
it
钱
was a time when
回去慢慢看啊。走好了。
you know, starting with reform,
慢走啊。
there was a deep anxiety about what it had wrought.
兰兰，
You know, in the form of more
医学博士没一块儿来吗？
violence on the street and chaos in
你怎么了？
食堂老吴
society
只给大
at
家道歉，
large.
还给了汤料。
来，
哎，来一份。
又整理出100多张照片来，
There had been a
叫老赵接陶兰
strike
兰来
hard
辨认。
campaign against crime in 1983,
不大靠得住。
which sort of came along with, at the time, also to return to the idea of spiritual pollution, a campaign against
带上陶兰
spiritual pollution
跟
from the
着我们
West
一个个
and
单位、一个个人进行辨认。
bourgeois
这该靠得
liberalism.
住吧？
你说笑话呢？那不丢人吗？
That concern about street crime that was rising after reform and opening, when everyone was, not everyone, but many people were free from their work units, factory jobs, and their dormitories, and their supervision of the state and the family unit.
我知道，
That
俺能听他们的，听你催着破
in
案
that time
人一
the
走就麻烦了。
that
我管
street
得了
crime
你，管
and
不了人家父母。
费得那么大劲，
whatnot was
好办也
connected
得办，
to
不好办也得办。
the idea of
你老在开
ideas
车的时
coming
间
in
打
from the
主意
West,
不大对头
bourgeois
啊。
怎么
liberalism.
不对头？又没怀疑你老赵。
去你的！
哎，老赵，你有什么高见啊？
那天在现场我注意过轮胎印儿，那家伙到了3把方向才跑开。 把这丢在验尸胶那儿，既没拉手闸，又没关门，不太像正路子。
哎，犯人可是
Now
在
this is
作
an
案，
experiment. I never
又不
know
是在
when
出
to
公差，
talk, and I realize
他
I've
能把杂志忘在车上，
probably talked
就不能忘了拉
too
手闸。
much, and I'll have nothing to say for
当
the
然不能肯
remaining
定，
hour
是有那
that
种
this
感觉，
movie
不大对
plays.
头。
嗨，破案又不是在感觉
But，
是在范围。
So be
你
it.
总不能来一次人人大过关吧？
哎，你这案子还算有个范围，我那儿连点线索都没有。
我这也是瞎说，添点水吧。
不用。
如果他硬带你走，你去不去？
我和你一块儿去。
我不能去，我得找那个人。
姐姐，
兰兰，你怎么学得吞吞吐吐的？有话就说。
我又看见那个人了。
谁？
就是那天晚上那个男的。
在哪儿？什么时候？
And
刚才来的时候，
I talked
就在
over
那儿。
this key part
他往哪儿去
where
了？
Lanlan reveals
他就
that
从
she
这儿走了。
did see Chang Rong's character.
你看清没有？
好像是。
So
你怎么不去叫李长伟啊？
Qingqing realizes that
我听你
the
说过，你看不上他。
investigation must progress.
那你为什么不砍人？
我害怕。
笨蛋！你活该倒霉。
姐姐。
She's upset with Lanlan for not alerting her, or alerting, I guess, Xie Yuan's character to seeing her
坐下。
her rapist.
哥，又输钱了。
你偷车那天晚上，小教堂出了档子事儿，公安局传我了，幸亏有3个人可以证明我的打牌，要不然……
哥，好汉做事一人当，那事是我干的。
还真是你干的。我真怀
So
疑
here
是
he
不是咱妈生的？
Suan Dacheng, Chang Rong's character, admits to his
打
brother
牌输了钱，
what he's done.
拿我撒什么气啊？
这什么女人不能搞，非干这号丧天良的事儿。就你这号鸡脑子，进了监狱也是睡马桶的料。你还敢穿这身衣服去逛马路？你倒是挺为警察想的。脱了，全脱了，倒汽油烧了去。
哥，这新买的。
你少废话，换上，把鞋脱了，也一块烧了。拉扯你长大，养了个畜生。
哥，你不是说劝赌不劝嫖吗？
我扇了你！
再打我可急了呀！
哎，
这个人还在，就更危险。哎，隔2天，你跟你妈到上海去躲躲，
Lanlan's
等把罪
father
犯抓着了，
wants
你再回来
to
嘛，是不是？
take her away
他们要是欺负你，
so she
就
can
你
get
帮着
over
写
it.
信，要不会写，就找你舅舅写也行啊。
别说是他这么小孩了，就是我们这些大人，见了亡命徒谁不怕呀？我就亲眼看见过，光天化日之下拿了刀就捅着售票员，周围没人敢吭一声的。谁要吭声？
到学校
那不是白
跟那些同学，谁也别斗气，只管好好学习。
祸从天降啊，
将来怎么都
谁也没办法。
每天放学回来，先把书。
我看只有将来他长大了，再结了婚，他就明白了。人啊，不忘掉点事儿，就没法活下去。
我要能忘了兰兰这事儿，活着就不算人了。
行了，行了，抓罪犯那是公安局的事儿，就根本不是你的事儿。
兰兰是公安局生的，是你公安局养大的。
Now, once again, Qingqing is being told, quit worrying about this.
别让兰兰听见。兰兰，来跟姐姐再见。青青，
哎，别着急，上马上开车了。青青要开车了。
青青。
哎，青青，青青。哎呀，老头，快点！你看，青青把兰兰给拉走了。
哎呀，你怎么把拦住了？
哎呀，人从你身边，你给拉走了，你还赖我？哎呀，你快点，快点！
这是7号。
I wonder if there was some kind of. I wonder why this was filmed in Qingdao.
行李在底下，2个东西，2件，拜托。
There's basically film production was centered in Shanghai and Beijing. And when you do get outside of those two places, most of the films are shot in around Xi'an, that kind of area. You know, like Raise the Red Lantern. Or Red Sorghum.
闹得死去活来，我们拗不过你，也觉得问心有愧，就依了你。其实，当时你要不那么拗着性子闹，也不至于。
It was sort of those movies, those fifth generation movies, sort of connect to the
那年我得了甲
kind
亢
of root-seeking
你和兰兰
or
天天到医
Xuangan
院给我
idea
送饭，
in
陪着我。
Chinese literature at the time
你
that
爸爸忙，
you
没
needed to
时
find
间。
a new
好吧，明说吧，我是
sort
再
of
也
like an
经不起
alternative
别的
to
什么
the
事了。
to the
你们现在的
Maoist
处境都不好，
state
兰兰
in
还是跟我走
local
好。
locations.
你呢？
But
以
also,
后我想办法把你
Shanxi
调
was
到上海
imagined to
去。
be, in a way, like a source of Chinese culture. You know, like the yellow,
你不问问兰兰愿意吗？
you know, like along the Yellow River and those dusty
她要是不
plateaus.
愿意呢？
It's like Chinese,
你现在的老婆要
like
是
a
欺负
source
她
of
呢？
Chinese tradition and culture.
越说越不像话了。要是你现在
Nobody
男人
really
欺负了她呢？
went out and filmed
兰兰
in
将来
a
怎么做人？
place like Qingdao. So
丢得起丢不起这个人，名声那是可以杀人的。
你们还知道名声？
让兰兰跟着我，那是为了换
or
个好
quite
环境
often when they
狗屁
did
好环
film
境。
outside of
我和
those
兰兰跟着
those
你们把自己
centers,
受够了。
it was usually
你们一吵架就摔东西，
camouflaged as somewhere
生恶
else.
气打得一塌糊涂，
Like one of the biggest film studios during this time was Changchuan Film Studios.
恨不得去死。
They made a lot of
你知道不知
very
道？
ridiculous
脸阴下来，
exploitation, thriller, Hong Kong action
紧
rip-off
张得连气儿也不敢出。
movies, and they would often
我和兰兰只好啃着饼干，
have
对着水龙头喝凉
the
水。你们闹了5年离婚，
Liaodong
我和
Peninsula
兰兰就受了5年罪。
coast as
你们从来就没想过，
like
谁造成的？
somewhere in Singapore
怪谁？
or
你说
Hong
怪谁？
Kong.
你问你妈，她最清楚。
我要问的是你，你对得起孩子吗？
这家要是好好的，孩子能成这样？
孩子弄成这样是我造成的，是你提出的离婚。
好，你今天你当着亲戚里说清楚，我为什么要提出离婚？你敢说吗？
出去吵去！
你比你妈还不讲理啊！
你们都走，我让你们走。
And we see the crowd outside again, listening in. You know, the great thing about watching a movie, I've seen this maybe 4 or 5 times, is that you start noticing things you never did before. Like that scene where she drops the books on the stairs. I never noticed it before, actually.
黑叔来了，再把书摊搞起来。
我马上要当政协委员了，是吧？不卖那些书了。
不跟你开玩笑，真的。
你爸你妈呢？
他们的目的已经达到，哪儿来哪儿去了。兰兰放暑假了，我想让她从今天开始每天在你这儿，行吗？
守株待兔。
接住啊，接住，再往下放点，好
接好。
好了吗？
哎。
And, you know, his use of that idiom is from a story about a hunter who sees a rabbit run into a tree stump one day and then sits around waiting beside that tree stump for another rabbit to come and smack himself into the tree stump. But this is what they're going to do. They're going to lie in wait for Chang Rong's character to come back. They're going to lay a trap for him. Hopefully he'll come to replenish his supply of pornography.
哥，你发现了没有？青青现在看人眼珠子是直的。
上班下班都忙，没法不直。
我知道你喜欢青青，她也是我的老同学，可我现在开始担心了。
他就这脾气，这脾气挺可爱。
你得了吧，你们这事儿要是真的成了，他要倔起来，我看有你好受。
常伟，榔头再给我用一下。
哎，给。
You know, in the 1980s, there was suddenly a big, not just in film, but in literature too, of what you could publish. So it's like the age of the 地摊文学, or like a 地摊 is like a picture. I don't know, but you know, you see it still. You see like a tarp spread out on the ground, and books sold on it, and it's usually like pulp fiction, and like when you go to a used book market in China now, you still see the like nude photography books or like pictorial studies or whatever the hell they call them. Which are basically an excuse for showing naked ladies. But the 1980s was like a golden age of that kind of literature. And it's interesting because that kind of stuff circulated all through the 1970s, often as not often mimeographed, but usually hand-copied books like thrillers and alternate histories and like vaguely pornographic detective stories. And in the 1980s, all that was republished. Well, not republished, but published for the first time openly. You know, when you think of like underground literature of totalitarian communist regimes, you picture like, I don't know, sort of liberal fairy tales about dissidents fighting back against the state. But in actuality, at least in the Cultural Revolution period, the hunger was for basically the same kind of pulp fiction that people are always hungry for.
太近了，人脸就变形了。
这行吗？哎，这是干嘛的？
哎，这你可千万别，这一按后盖就开了。
你怎么三心二意的？让你干什么来了？这么演行不行？
你自己看着办吧。
You know, this movie was basically why I went back and watched all these movies from the 1980s and 1990s, is because I'd never seen them, and it was sort of interesting. My idea of Chinese cinema after 1979 was really defined by those fifth generation movies that had made it outside of China, like this self-orientalizing epics, you know, like Raise the Red Lantern. and Red Sword.
1点1刻。
谢谢。
This kind of stuff never made it outside China. Nobody's ever written about it, really. So it's quite appealing as a subject, because you can even there's not a lot of Chinese writing about some of these movies. This one in particular, there is, because it was Zhou Xiaowen went on to have quite a lot of success, and this is just a great movie that has a lot of meat on the bone for critics. But most of the movies made, nobody ever saw them. You know, like I said, out of the 100+ movies made a year in the late 1980s, only a couple dozen would break even or turn a profit because nobody saw them, and many of them couldn't be rebroadcast later, and they couldn't be released on home video because they didn't fit with, you know, sort of a new measure of acceptability after this period.
怎么回事？
你根本就没照上。看。
Anyways, they talked over that great scene where she's taking pictures of everyone sitting in their car.
人家说你漂亮。
The lens cap
准备
was
贴
on.
在橱窗上做广告呢。
你笑屁！你不是说都弄好了，只管按就行了。
不会没电了吧？我给你装的新电池。
But what I would do is I would just look at a list of movies for each year. Like I would see, these are all the movies made in 1984, and then just systematically
这个你打开了没有？
try to go through the list.
相机里的人我都看见了呀。
And a lot of it was not good.
你可以当88年10大新闻
A
人
lot of
物
it
了。
was very interesting, and quite often nobody had written about it, as I said, in English or even in Chinese. So it's quite interesting as something to write about. You know, you can see a great movie. You can see.
弄来弄去。
I don't know. You can watch The Deer Hunter for the first time in 2021 and try to write something about it. And I'm sure you can bring your own
像是旧小说里看来的话。
experiences to it and your
我
own
是妇产科的。
intellectual lens to see it through. But you're getting there so late that it's hard to produce any novel ideas about it. And it's also hard not to be influenced by what you already know about it. Because even if you've never watched The Deer Hunter, you've read about it. You know what it's about and its reception, I guess you could say.
就是个蠢人。有3种工作对人了解最深：妇产科、法院和殡仪馆。人是什么？你应该明白。人总要生下来，发育长大，衰老。
你想说什么？
But when you watch like the Zhou Xiaowen movies from the 90s,
青青，有些事儿，你
you're forced to come up with novel ideas about them
要是你妹妹
to some extent.
要是换上你怎么办？
If you were to publish an essay about rush of youth
你害怕负担。
online, you would probably have the only available writing about that movie outside of comments
相机再借我
on
用用。
at the
我会
Douban
用的。
page of it. That makes it quite attractive to me. Yeah, I guess when people are looking for
睡会儿吧。
obscure
你还可以睡1个钟头。
music or cinema to write about, it's not really. I guess sometimes it's about showing off your taste, but I think sometimes often the appeal in doing that is finding just fresh ground to plow. Okay, and look at her looking at herself in the mirror. That's a frequent Zhou Xiaowen thing, and she's going to. It's okay. Just note this scene where she's looking at herself in the mirror and just taking in her beauty, because we're going to, and look at Lanlan looking at herself too. Anyways, we're going to see that contrasted with another my favorite scene in the movie later. But let's not spoil it.
或者受害者及亲属的报复，而情绪不安、行为不稳定，甚至产生新的犯罪动机，或由于担心自己被发现，或因为对自己犯罪的结果感兴趣，对周围的事物会变得敏感起来。
Another appeal of these 1980s and 1990s movies is that although they couldn't be often all the time rebroadcast on CCTV6, maybe not today they couldn't be rebroadcast on CCTV6, or maybe they came out on VCD or something like that. But anyways, they're all quite widely available. It's hard to find something that's so obscure and unloved that it hasn't been pirated by somebody. So if you pull up a list of every movie released in 1984 or let's say 1992, it's easy to find them all online. Streaming. And it's always in very bad quality. This version is quite good because it got an official release. Now we have to. There are some trade-offs because it is cut, so we miss a couple scenes. But if you really want to see Wu Yujuan nude at the beginning of the film, you can also find that online. But I'm not watching the Taiwan home video version because it's not available in high quality online. You can watch it at like 240p and like it looks like it was. It looks like somebody was holding like a camcorder up to their TV. It's that level of quality, so we're not watching that.
孙大生就是那修茶行的老板，曾因赌博斗殴劳教过3年。案发时他不在现场，又去赌了。哎，你说这小子有救没救了？
And there is a version of the CCTV6 broadcast version available, but it's not available right now. It used to be up on Chinese streaming sites, but for whatever reason it's been taken down. So that's why we're watching this version.
你为什么拍人拍照？
你是记者，我还是警察呢。啊？
他有点啊，
And she busts into the crowd there saying, I'm a journalist. I have the right to take pictures. And Lao Zhao leads her away, saying, this girl's a little bit crazy. Be careful.
刚在个体户会上表扬了你，怎么摊子又支起来了？
人大常委给我免了，政协委员也给撤了，老母幼妹又要吃饭，没办法。
狐狸尾巴又
This
露
is
出
the
来
woman
了
we
吧？
saw earlier in uniform in
别
the
人都提
store.
抗议了，说学生们都让你们这号人给教坏了。
除了欺负我们，还敢惹谁呀？当年的红卫兵怎么样？
She's once again taking
你
him
再
to
会
task
贫嘴，
for
你这摊上卖
selling
的也
his
不是什么
junk.
好东西，低档次。
我里边一屋子的好东西，莎士比亚全集、郭沫若文选，你买不买？哎，猪吃杂食，羊吃绿草，各有各的料嘛。
Inside the store, I've
那
got
像卓雅
all
舒拉、
kinds of
钢铁
serious
是怎样
literature,
炼成
but
的？
你为什么不
Is
卖？
anybody buying it?
这个，你请教出版社吧。
She asked him, why don't you sell how the steel was made?
向前看，把人
How the
心
steel
都
was
看
tempered, which is like a classic of
你这书又脏又破，还不折价？
啊，折。
Soviet socialist realism.
偶尔有一两本好书。
你慢慢挑啊，慢慢挑。
How the steel was made is also a
兰兰，
another.
协议好不好？
It's the name of a movie from 1995, also, by the way.
不要看，
A great
主要精力
rock and roll
放在
movie,
功课上，行不行？
which is also somewhat socially
就看这屋里，
conservative,
别
I
看
would
外
say.
边。啊？不反对就是同意，咱们拉个勾。嗯？累了，就进屋歇会儿。别怕，我不跟青青说。
李长伟，
哎，来了。
长得还挺漂亮的，
管什么用？脸皮已经发硬了。
几床的
？7至3床的，是对双胞胎。他妹妹一生下来就死了，是被他的脐带缠死的。这个姐姐恐怕也活不成了。
7至3床真惨，
惨什么呀？一听说是女的，根本就不想要，说要是活的话，抱去送人算了。
真他妈混蛋！
青青，我听护士长跟主任说，要把你调到病房去。
为什么？
说你最近老迟到，总是丢三落四的，怕出事故。
Abandoned by its parents.
他去跟院长说，我也不走。
This girl child.
你轻点，别说是我告诉你的。
And the two baby girls are sort of like Qingqing and Lanlan, obviously. You know, abandoned also. And we hear again that sort of anguished scream, this time coming from the mouth of the baby girl.
上车吧，我送你们回家。
不用了，你忙吧。
Once again, they call La Zhao as a symbol of healthy traditional masculinity, I would say. But people like him are on their way out. He is quite literally on his way out, as he's about to tell the girls here. He's going to be leaving the force. I don't know if you can hear it in the background here, but
谢谢，太麻烦你了。
a common feature of living in East Asia is the sound of your neighbors hammer drilling their apartments. So that's what's happening in the background. I don't know if you can hear it though.
是送给我孙子的。
那以后你就可以清闲了。
清闲了。
you know, the cop is able to protect them in a way that their parents can't, and that actually the police no longer can either. She says if your family ever needs any anything, any hospital, any medical care, just call me. I'll get you guys in the back door. But you get the sense that he will not be taking her up on the offer, and he would pai dui, as she says. He would line up. He would follow the rules. Anyways, we get back to the heavy homoeroticism of the two brothers. I feel kind of guilty saying it, calling it homoerotic, because I don't know if it was intended to be, but it's impossible not to see this. And you'll see as this scene develops what I'm talking about. Zhou Xiaowen was never, you know, you get the sense that he puts in the nude scene at the beginning is kind of artistic and beautiful in its own way. But you get the feeling it's sort of put in, I don't know, grudgingly. Not really that scene, but when Zhou Xiaowen does it in Rush of Youth and No Regrets, when he puts in the cleavage and the lingering shots of his actresses' legs or whatever, it's sort of grudging, but he really loves the body of Chang Rong. You know, in Rush of Youth, there's a long shot of Chang Rong shirtless and oiled up, splitting wood, and here he has an extended study of Chang Rong getting a pump on with his brother.
也别去修车行，这种花时间一长就过了，过了风，我再把你送走。别练你那破玩意儿了，有劲儿没处使的话，给我捶捶腰。
And we can see on the wall behind them now, there's a pair of shotguns, which are going to be important later.
这张像不像？这个呢？你看。 这张像不像李长伟？是啊。
Sort of tragic that, well, not tragic exactly, but
你看，这张
people who were making movies at this time were they were too late to enjoy like the 1950s and 1960s. You know, often they came of age in the 1970s. There wasn't really a lot of film production between, let's say, 1968 and 1976. There weren't a lot of movies made. It was like, and the type of movies were, you know, very strictly controlled. So a lot of them came of age in the in the 1970s, the people who made movies in the 1980s. And they couldn't really make movies. So they had missed the 1960s and the 1950s, but they also missed the 1990s, when the movie industry was sort of rehabilitated. So, you know, like, Wu Yujuan, the actress we see here is Qingqing. She, in another era, she probably would have been a star, or Chang Rong, but came along at just the wrong time. So outside of his roles in the Zhou Xiaowen movies, for example, Chang Rong is in really bad movies through the 80s and early 90s. He's in a movie called Operation Pluto, I think it's 1992, where he plays, there's like a Dakar rally type situation in Xinjiang that's being attacked by some Pakistani, I want to say, drug dealers. And then he's also in a movie where he plays a villainous guy who takes his girlfriend and her friend illegally across the border into Burma and then Thailand, Vietnam, and he ends up getting hooked on heroin and selling them into basically slavery. But it's not like memorable movie. It's not a memorable performance either necessarily.
庆庆要是不打瞌睡，早点检查，也许不至于。庆庆，少吃那药，没好处。
庆庆的检查间隔没有超过规定。你们把这个病历整理一下，再核实核实。
我是。
And now, please remember here, see a scene of her looking at herself in the mirror, admiring her beauty, her neck. And we're going to see her look at herself in the mirror here again. It's a great shot, I guess you would call it. But I'll let us get to that.
杀人啦！医院杀人啦！这不是叫我断子绝孙吗？杀人呀！杀人！
有话外面说。走走走，小姐，走走走。
Just watch this. Look at her beautiful light brown eyes as well. And again, what a shame she didn't come along later. You know, this is the point where she's finally had enough. You can see she's turning herself into an animal. No longer looking at her long neck, but her sharp teeth.
Lanlan. 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 Lanlan.
And the interesting thing is she has the same posters as Chang Rong does. They might even be literally the same posters. Maybe the set designer just used them here again, but she has them in her closet.
晚上自己跑来的，说要在我这儿。 我怎么劝，他也不听。要送他回去，他也不肯。
他为什么？
他说，他怕你。
怕我什么？
我没问。
And Xie Yuan's character says that
青青
Lanlan was scared of her sister. She's gone too far.
你带兰兰出去玩玩吧。
去哪儿？
哪儿都行啊，只要离开家，越远越好。你要是跟兰兰换一换就好了。你害怕她，那你就能住到我这儿来了。成人之危，心里够他妈阴暗的。青青，咱们出去玩吧。咱们3个一块儿去，今天就走。
那不行。你还有书屋呢，青青书屋。
Anyways, you know, when they were in the car, Qingqing said, "Now you can 清闲. You can be you can take it easy. You can leave your work behind to lao zhao." But he repeated the phrase and he said, "Yeah. I'll take it easy." But it's clear he's not, because the police have not followed up on this character. You know, this guy. He knows that something's going on with that loft, the people who are living up in that tower, and he's going to track it down, no matter what they say.
非得今天晚上走？那书屋呢？
嗨，关几天门，饿不死。
哥，你这恋爱谈的真够绝门的。我看你不像她男朋友，倒像是她爸。
那得了。
Now at this point, Xie Yuan's character and Wu Yizhang's character sort of agree to
还要白费劲儿。
close the book on the investigation.
别忘了给兰兰买个小望远镜啊。
They're gonna go away for a couple days.
起码5年不准回来。
哥，要是公安局追到那儿抓我怎么办？
只要你在那边别再翻了，谁也找不着你。
And
这不是命案，不至于全国通缉。
the two brothers are going to fly the coop.
哥，这是干嘛？
这是我最后一笔钱，就怕你小子有今天。
哥，你要是死了，我天
I'm
天给
not
你
sure
烧。
quite what he pulled out there, but it says, I guess, details of a bank account or something. It's his last bit of money.
行了，我已经让小琴给咱买好了今儿晚上的火车票，啊，青青，哎，不是，哎，青青，哎呀，你看这，嗨，我说青青，这，
你马上带人控制住那兄弟俩。哎，小张，哟，通过电脑赶快查找孙大成材料。是。你派车去接陶兰兰，准备侧面辨认。
让我去接吧，我知道他在哪儿。
别乱跑。哎，我去取钱。然后。
And anyways, this is where everyone finally collides. Now, you know, I don't have much to say, except for enjoy the final 10 minutes of this. The one thing I'll say is that the in this version that we're watching, the audio goes tragically out of sync, progressively out of sync as the movie ends, which is annoying, but what can you do?
后边有车追我们，还追我们的！哎，
If this experiment works and is at all interesting, I'm sort of pondering what the next movie we could do is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to do something old like something from 1976, like Song of the Mango, or something also in the same vein. Like, maybe it might be fun to do one of the Sino-Vietnamese war movies, like Surprise Move in Snake Valley or Spectre Force from 1986. The difference with those is, I don't know if I'd have as much to say. This is a movie I've watched many times, and it's also the first one, so I can tell you about sort of more general stuff. But I don't know. We'll see if this works. This one.
快下！哥，咱跑不了了。
你他妈什么事也干不了，现在只能拼了。
哥，我去堵后门。
你赶快上楼。
这座楼有没有其他通道？
那边有个后门。
这不是个老手，我们可以从多方位迷惑他，不要轻易下手，要绝对保证人质安全。
知道。
And it was sort of interesting to see them here at the end. They've both Chang Rong's character and Yujuan's character sort of in the same, I don't know, animalistic state. Him driven mad by pornography, and her driven mad by injustice. They're both at this moment sort of completely unhinged. Potentially Qingqing more so than Chang Rong's character, as we'll see in a moment. Anyways, Lao Zhao is about to grab a gun, even though he's not supposed to. He's going to step out onto the roof. Wow, what a sick line. This is, you can't do that, you're a cop. He said, no, I'm retired. He's your brother, right? Well, that's my daughter. You've got one shell in that shotgun. I've got 5 rounds in this pistol. So let's do it. Sort of interesting that he does call Qingqing his daughter at this point. She's not his daughter, but I mean figuratively, and has his role as protector of that traditional femininity that's been despoiled here. And here's the big moment coming. And right away, Lao Zhao shouts, "Say it wasn't you. Say you didn't do it. Say you didn't kick him." But you can see as she comes down in this almost like ecstatic state. She's almost smiling as she comes down. You can see she doesn't care. Now, I don't know, this scene is always a mystery to me of exactly why the police take her back. I guess just because she is Lanlan's guardian, so she's going to see her a final time. I don't know exactly what's going on, but this is also quite striking. This part where she's going to be let in, and you can see these kids fighting over the dirty books. And she's going to see her sister maybe one last time. I don't know what's going to happen to her, but the crowd peering in, and Lanlan seems sort of unfazed by the whole thing. And we get the anger scream, and for a split second we see the bathhouse nude scene. And in the version that would have played in theaters and is on that Taiwan home video release, we see the bath scene played again. Anyways, that's about it. I don't know if that worked. I don't know if that's interesting, but there it is. That was 1988's Obsession, directed by Zhou Xiaowen. Have a good day.